Hello everyone, in today's video I want to talk about the different types and forms of watercolor. So I searched in my drawer for all the watercolor related products and these are all of them. So we have the very classic watercolor tubes squeezed into pens, watercolor crayons, watercolor sticks, watercolor pens like this, watercolor pencils, opaque watercolor, this is gouache. We have watercolor on sheets like this, and we have watercolor brush markers and markers. So in today's video, I want to talk about the pros and cons of each medium. Watercolor paint in tubes like this is the most common form of watercolor. They come in different capacities, 5 ml, 7, 12, 15, or even more. And you can squeeze them out into pens like this. Or you can use them straight from the tube, just squeeze them into a plastic palette. I do this at home. These are the different colors that I have already squeezed out into pens. Now if there is a specific color that I want to use but it's not here in this selection, for example azo yellow, I would just squeeze some paint onto my plastic palette and use it from here. I do not want to squeeze this out into pens because the more pens I have, the less likely I will be able to use them all up. So keeping the paint in tubes like this will keep it fresh and protect it from being contaminated by other colors. A 15 ml tube like this can be used to refill a half pen about 7 times, so it's more economical to actually get tubes like this to refill your pens. The main reason for me squeezing out paint into pens like this is to make the watercolor paint more portable. So like this box here, this is very portable. I can bring the colors around anywhere I like. I can bring tubes like this and my plastic palette outdoors as well, but when it comes to painting, sometimes I may squeeze a lot more color here. Then if the color gets unused, you have to find some way to sort of protect it so that I can use it for the next session. Now there are actually airtight watercolor boxes that prevent the paint from drying up and also make it easier for you to store away unused paint, but I don't have those boxes, so this is basically my portable setup. The second most common form of watercolor is probably watercolor pens. So you can buy them in box sets like this, or you can buy the colors individually in pens. Now buying them in box sets of course is going to be more economical, and when you run out of paint you can refill them using watercolor tubes. The quality of the paint in tubes and in the pens, if they are of the same grade, like if it's artist grade, then the quality should be pretty similar. When you have pen sets like this, it's good to use them often. If not, the pens may actually harden, they may crack and break into tiny pieces. So the next time you bring the box around, those tiny pieces would just run around. It's very messy. If you use your pens often, then the water and the paint will sort of mix together and cracking is not going to be an issue. Now these are half pen sizes, so they are not that convenient when it comes to painting large watercolor paintings. For that, you may want to choose full pens or go with tubes. When you buy box sets like this, look for boxes where you can mix the paint on the cover. So for example here, there is very limited mixing area. This box is nicer. There are 4 mixing wells here, and this plastic box has 6 mixing wells. The more mixing wells there are, the easier for you to separate your color mixes. Another good reason for using your pens often is because if you don't use them often, sometimes they may dry up and form some sort of coating on the surface, and that prevents the paint from being re-wetted or reactivated easily. And also, if you squeeze out paint into pens like this, certain colors will dry to a very hard surface, which makes it again difficult to re-wet. So sometimes you may want to test out certain colors in a small amount first before you squeeze them out into a full pen like this. The next product I have here is watercolor sticks. On the left is the Winsor & Newton watercolor stick, and on the right side these are from Daniel Smith. So these Daniel Smith sticks, they are thicker and cylindrical, while the Winsor & Newton sticks, they are more rectangular. Some of the sticks I have here have dried up and broken into tiny little pieces, so they can no longer be used. So with watercolor sticks, Since they are in a stick form like this, you can draw with them and then wet the surface of the paper, or you can wet the stick and paint with it. It's good to test out your medium regardless of which one you are using, because you don't want any surprises. So this is how it looks like when I wet the stick and paint with it. Let's try and dissolve this. Now, not all watercolor, although not all dry watercolor medium can re-wet easily. This one seems fine. Certain colors are more prone to drying out and crumpling. So again, it's good to use these things often to keep them in good working conditions. Daniel Smith watercolor sticks are used the same way. Now I have broken up my sticks to put them into pans like this because the binder for some of the sticks, they have escaped and it made the whole stick very gooey and very sticky, so it's not possible to hold them for drawing anymore. This is cobalt blue. You can see that this still looks like sticks. Some parts have dried and crumpled into pieces, but for Hansa yellow medium, when the binder escaped, the pigment became so soft that I can actually press and sort of squeeze the sticks together to make it look like this. So sometimes the sticks may harden and break into pieces, and in Daniel Smith's case, sometimes the sticks may become soft. Here I have 2 boxes of wax pastels made by Karen Dutch. These are the Neocolor series. Neocolor 2 is water soluble, Neocolor 1 is not. Neocolor 1 is water resistant. You can get this in box sets like this, or you can get them as individual colors. These are pretty fun to use as well. Again, you can draw with them, or you can wet your watercolor brush and wet the tip to get the pigment out. You can get a very nice textured look on textured paper. Let's see what happens when I wet this. Now this dissolves very easily, and you can see the color, it's very vibrant. These are very fun to use, and there are a lot of colors. Neocolor 2 has a range of 126 colors. Now pay attention to this warning here. Keep away from sun and heat. So yes, if they get hot and warm, these will either turn soft or they will become hard and crumple. And this is something that I received as a present from one of my YouTube viewers. Thank you very much. So these are actually watercolor blocks. They are in this rectangular block form compared to the stick form, which I find it to be easier to use. So if you want to use it like this, you're holding it like this, the paint may actually get onto your fingers. So if you want to draw with it like this, it's not advisable to use your watercolor brush and dab it onto the side because it's going to make it wet. Notice some of the crummy bits falling off from the block. Alright, my fingers are starting to turn yellow. I'm going to wash my hand first. Let's see how well this would re-wet. And it re-wets quite easily, which is great. And the color is very intense. This product is called Aqua Brick, and it's made by Watercolor. And here is a picture of it being used with an airbrush. So I guess the paint can dissolve so easily that you can use it with an airbrush, or you may want to use it with a water mister. The advantages of these blocks is you can cover a large area very easily. The disadvantage is prepare to get your hands dirty. Next, let's look at watercolor pencils. Now, watercolor pencils come in different grades as well. There is artist grade as well as student grade. So let's test out these pencils. These are the fan color pencils made by Karen Dutch. Some pencils can dissolve easily, some pencils cannot. So just like normal color pencils, you can blend colors together. You can use all the different color pencil techniques. Let's add water to this and see what happens. The color is not as intense compared to the Aqua Brick that I tested earlier. But the good thing here is it seems like the pencils, they can dissolve easily. Just for fun, let's compare that with Derwent ink tens. So the Derwent ink tens is definitely more vibrant, but the pigment, well, it takes some time to dissolve properly. Derwent ink tens pencils, they are not light fast, so what that means is if you expose the colors to sunlight, they may fade over time. Now, some watercolor paint is more light fast compared to others. If you want your art to be archival, you will want to check out the light fast quality and also read more reviews to find out about the actual quality. I don't use watercolor pencils that often because I find them to be a bit difficult to use, and also I've not found a perfect use for them yet. The next product I have here is pretty interesting. This is the Viviva color sheets. These colors are actually dye-based inks, but dried and placed onto a sheet like this. So you can wet your watercolor brush and pick up the paint, pick up the ink here, and then paint with it. The color is very vibrant. These are dye-based inks, so they are not going to be light fast. I have reviewed Viviva color sheets on my YouTube channel before. If you want to check out that review, just follow the link in the video description below. This is actually the second version of the product, and with the second version, there are some color strips here to let you find the color very easily on the pages. Now notice some of the colors, they are a bit difficult to tell just by looking at it. For example, here we have Viridian. Viridian is green, but here it looks magenta. And this is Peacock Blue, which is obviously blue, but it also looks magenta. So let's see what happens when I wet Viridian and paint with it. So that's the color. It's very different from the swatch on the paper, on this swatch book here. And this is Peacock Blue. So it's always good to test out the colors first by swatching out, because you don't want any surprises when you're actually painting with them. The last type of watercolor product that I have are watercolor brush pens and watercolor markers. So some of these brush pens, they are marketed as watercolor, but they actually use dye inks. Real watercolor uses pigment. Those are tiny particles of color. Some are light fast and fade resistant, some are not. But for dye-based inks or water-based inks, they are certainly not fade resistant. What I have here is the Kuretake brush pen. So now I'm going to use this water mister to spray some water onto these swatches here and see if they are permanent and water resistant or water soluble. So it looks like Viviva color sheets and Kuretake brush pens, they are water soluble and not water resistant. Next, we have Winsor & Newton watercolor markers. They are pigmented and their light fast rating is similar to the watercolor tubes and pens that Winsor & Newton are selling. So let's take a look at the quality. These are not alcohol markers, so they do not have any smell, and the colors, they look quite strong. They work just like normal markers if you are using them like this. Let's see if this is water soluble. So this is pretty water resistant. I'm pretty sure that when it's dry properly, it's waterproof. So I want to wet the paper here and then let's try and blend some colors. So I'm going to have this red. So you can see here when the paper is wet and I apply the watercolor marker, the color is not very intense. The paper is still wet. We can get some colors to diffuse into the wet surface, but this is not as easy compared to real watercolor paint, those that are from the tubes. I'm not very good at using these markers, so I shall not embarrass myself. Anyway, I'm pretty sure there are professionals who will be able to use these markers to their fullest potential. I saw some videos on YouTube that show some artists painting with these markers and the results look pretty good. Next we have liquid watercolor. The main difference between liquid watercolor and ink is liquid watercolor uses pigment while ink uses dye. So on the left here I have 2 bottles of Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus Fine Art Watercolor. You can see the pigment inside. So if you do not use your bottle for a long time, the pigment would actually settle at the bottom of the bottle, or if you put a bottle on the side like this, it would settle on the side. Maybe this one is clearer. See the pigment here? So you would have to shake the bottle to mix the pigment very thoroughly. This is unlike dye inks or dye-based so-called watercolors because there is nothing inside to shake. This is very concentrated watercolor. So now I'm going to test this on this sheet of paper. I'm going to wet this first. Then I'm going to drop a drop of watercolor on the paper and mix it with another color. It is essential to get bottles that come with the eyedropper because this eyedropper is very convenient. If not, it's going to be a bit difficult to get the liquid watercolor out. And also you would have to buy separate eyedroppers and find a place to put those eyedroppers. So this is definitely very concentrated. Let's see how the color moves on the wet surface. So while this is still wet, I'm going to drop another drop here and here. I'm going to use my brush to spread it out properly. Now once it's on the paper like this, it's actually not very different compared to watercolor from tubes or pens. The watercolors from Dr. P.H. Martin's has dried very nicely. The color is very intense. And now let's take a look at the Ecoline liquid watercolors. Now to call this liquid watercolor is sort of a misnomer. I would consider this to be dye-based inks rather than watercolor because there are no pigments inside. Because these are dye-based inks, they are usually not water resistant when dry, and because they are really just inks, you can use them to refill markers like this. This is the Ecoline brush pen that, if I'm not wrong, uses the same ink that is inside this bottle. And now I'm going to wet the paper again, this time test the Ecoline ink. And notice as I go over the Hydrus watercolor, this is sort of not affected. I can see some colors coming out, but mostly it's water resistant. Some colors are more permanent compared to other colors depending on the pigment that is used. So for staining watercolors, the micropigments would go into the paper and stay there. So it would be very difficult to lift the color and hence the color would be permanent. But for non-staining colors, the colors would actually remain on the paper and you can lift them very easily. So now I'm going to drop a drop of Ecoline ink on the paper. Now this color seems to be a bit more vibrant compared to the Hydrus. And now I'm going to drop this magenta color here. So this is also very intense. The colors are starting to blend. Now depending on the product, the binder, the pigment or the inks, sometimes the blend may be streaky, sometimes it may be very smooth. The colors here look pretty intense, so with magenta and yellow we can get a nice red here. I've just dried this thoroughly with my hairdryer and now let's test and see if they are water soluble or water resistant when dry. So I'm going to test the Hydrus first. Now why I'm doing this test is because sometimes you want to glaze over your first wash with another color. So it seems like the Hydrus, it's water resistant, it's waterproof. Now if you use too much pigment, then of course some of the paint is going to reactivate and that's going to dissolve. So that would not be surprising. Let's test this side with the Ecoline ink. So with the Ecoline ink, it looks like it's pretty water resistant as well. I can see some colors starting to come out, but it's not bad, it's quite good actually. So now I'm going to paint this blue to glaze this glue over the existing wash and see what we have. We have a nice green here. The Ecoline colors look very vibrant and it looks like they can handle glazing quite well. The only thing to note is the colors may not be totally waterproof or water resistant when dry. In fact, I think I want to test out the markers as well. This was created with an Ecoline marker and it has dried, so now I'm going to run some water over it. And you can see that it's not totally water resistant. As with any art supplies, always test your supplies first with the paper or with the techniques you usually use, because you don't want surprises like this. So these are most of the watercolor products currently out there in the market that you can buy today. Depending on the medium, there will be different sorts of application. For example, if you are making a large piece of watercolor painting, then it will make more sense to use watercolor tube paints or large full pens like this. If you want something portable, then pen sets like this would be more portable, or even this Viviva color sheets. Anything that is inside a box would be more portable. And if you want to draw with them, you have watercolor pencils. If you want textures, you have those watercolor sticks or the crayons. You can mix and match any medium. You can also mix different brands, no problems at all. The main consideration would be to test out the colors first, test and see whether or not they are water soluble when dry or they are water resistant, and also look out for the light fast quality. If you want your artwork to be archival, if you want the colors to last for a long time, look for high quality pigmented light fast colors. I have detailed reviews for some of these products on my YouTube channel as well as on my blog, so if you're interested to find out how they actually perform when it comes to creating art, you can check out those reviews. The link will be in the video description below. Now, among all these products, my favorite are the watercolor tubes and the watercolor pens. For the rest of these products, like color pencils, markers, I don't use them often. I've yet to find the perfect situation to use them. So that's all for this video guide. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I hope this video is helpful. See you in the next video. Bye!